Hey, thanks for joining us for part two of this week's podcast.
We have to realize how stressed we are. And a lot of people, like, it's hard to admit that.
Yeah.
Like when we're saying like exercise, that walking is exercise. Okay, like there are going to be benefits of getting your heart rate up, but how much can your actual body recover
Yeah.
from getting your heart rate up even for just 30 seconds?
So I'll
So
tell you an interesting observation. When we came out, so we were closed down for pretty much March, April, May, and then we opened again in June last year. So then
yeah,
everyone had the benefit of the better weather. Everyone said their gardens, they've been doing up, they've been exercising, and it was a bit kind of looking back, it was a bit new and different of lockdown. And I noticed probably the first month, I would say 90% of my patients, 95% of my patients, and you could even argue close to 100%, that when we first checked people and we hadn't seen them for a couple of months, and they would say, no, I've coped fine, stress, and everything's fine. I'm on furlough, I've enjoyed it. We'd check them, they were all jammed up in the neck and mid back and around the shoulders because they were all carrying shoulders up to the ears, and then that in that stressed, I'm about to fight a lion posture. And then we noticed that through the latter part of summer, towards September, October, that pattern was slowing down. It wasn't as obvious. Now we see it all again because we've just had Christmas and now new lockdown. Numbers are up, fear factors are up, everyone's worried. Vaccines are coming, but they slow in people's eyes because they'll never be quick enough. And that same pattern is, but you ask people, how are you coping? How stress levels? No, it's all right, I'm not that stressed. But their bodies are showing it. The physiology is showing it. Everyone.
some of it is ego.
Yeah, they're coping because they're surviving. They're not having a mental breakdown. That doesn't mean that their body is thriving. They're not. They are stressed.
Yeah, and I think some of us is like it's when people say, "How are we doing?" I'm okay. Are you really okay? Yeah,
Yeah, that's just the knee jerk natural
yeah.
response, especially for guys.
It's just
You know,
like, is it the same with like South Africans as well, or is it just a British thing?
no, it's South Africans as well, especially a guy thing.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
don't know.
when we say in South Africa the expression when we say hello is how's it? How's it? How is it? It's exactly the same as here where someone says hello.
Yeah,
And so it's how's it? The answer to that from a South African is to say how's it back. To say how's it, how's it. The person's not really interested in how it is. They're just saying hello. And the
yeah.
guys, so I'm not here to offload my stresses. So it's classic. Let's talk. Where's here be football? Let's talk rugby. Let's talk whatever. It's almost an escape for guys. They don't naturally unless you've got your close knit, your best buddy, your closer. Then you would say, listen, I need some help. But same here, same in South Africa. Here, there's a big pride, probably even bigger male ego.
Well, I find that so we having this bro society thing is really good, and we do like one virtual, one in person, and you don't realize how much you've got to talk about until you start talking. So we have a
Yeah,
crystal that we pass around in the in person, and when you've got that crystal, it's your turn to talk. Talk about how your week has been, and everyone's there to listen. And it's not like listen and then give a chip in with how to fix that or anything. It's just
yeah,
listen. Like when you've got that item and you're holding that, you are just listening or you are just talking. And you don't realize until you start, then more comes out and more comes out and more comes out that, wow, actually, I have been quite stressed. Or like
yeah,
you feel good. Like I had a good one last night. And then there was something else that I was playing out on my mind and all these different things. And it soon adds up. So it is that talking thing, but how many people have we actually got to talk to? And I think like it's searching out those people.
yeah. And especially now, I mean, I heard of around Christmas of a good friend locally who's been unwell, but because we only see him socially at the golf club or so, and not connect like through social media and work and Christmas, never knew. But if we're in our normal pre-COVID existence, I would have known within a week.
Yeah.
So we don't have that immediate contact. So we kind of got to either seek it out or have that more inner circle, close family support, or close friend who does take the time out and that. Do you with that group, not sounding that you you get pleasure that someone else is battling, but does it also give you comfort in comfort, the wrong word, um, that someone else is also having similar, either challenges or, because there's this big thing that, especially with social media, that everyone else is having sex, everyone else is having a good time, everyone else is eating good food. No one else. It's just us who are having this stress or something. And when you speak to anyone, I think especially if they're working and running a household and they've got financial challenges. I have a patient the other day and said that if it wasn't for extending or having mortgage holiday, she's a hairdresser. He runs a pub. So both of them are out of work. So if it wasn't for some savings, and then now he's picked up some furloughed work, but nowhere near what he owes. But at least they got some money in. But if it wasn't for mortgage holidays, they would be totally screwed.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that and I said, I'm not in that situation. That to me is that is major stress. But she's like, yeah, we're coping and that, but they're carrying that stress. I mean, it's not that she's not stressed. She was talking about how stressful it was, but it's all relative. I mean, and so when you hear someone else and think, it's like, yeah, everyone is in the same boat. And sometimes you do sit back and say, you know what, actually, I have got the means. I'm coping all right, but it's all right to say that I'm stressed. That this is tough.
Framing that it's not everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's in the same ocean. People have got different boats, but we're still swimming that same or fighting that same fight to get to a different
Yeah,
destination.
and one person's stress is another's. One person's boat is made up and is solid and seaworthy. Another one's got broken oars, holes in it, and they're scooping water just to stay afloat.
And stress is a perception, right? So one person could go on a roller coaster and use it to chill out. And I've always said, I ain't going on a roller coaster. I hate those things. So, and it's going to stress me out a lot more than a lot of people. So I think definitely people have to put things into perspective. Like, you might think that your stresses aren't a big thing, but they are to you. And someone else is like, oh yeah, why am I moaning? I got a roof over my head. We've got some money coming in, but you've got your kids and all this sort of stuff. But the things that are pushing you to be stressed, and it's acknowledging those things. And you think there's a couple of guys that have been to this place and they're like, oh, I haven't got the problems. I feel it's like first world problems. Yeah, but they are still things you're going through.
Yeah.
And with me, my finance has been hit a bit, but I'm still earning more than I was when I worked in the corporate world, in insurance as a manager. I'm still earning more, but my outgoings are more. So in reality, some people are earning nothing. But then who's actually most stressed about it? And then I think it's having that perspective and going back to where we were before. You can be so stressed out now. You need that time for yourself.
Yeah, and I think from a healthcare perspective, that it actually doesn't matter what the stress is. If the stress is enough to change your physiology, then that's enough to acknowledge it. So if it's changing how your appetite, if it's changing your sleep patterns, if it's changing hormonal levels. So I had a patient, stress was so much that for a woman her menstrual cycle had stopped. I mean, that's significant stuff. So it doesn't actually matter what the stress is. It matters perhaps to have the systems in place to try and deal with the stress and identify it. But the stress is enough that it's all relative, as you say, because if it changes physiology, now that's going to have an impact on your health. If not immediate, so some people, there's a badge of honor. I've had all the stress and I'm fine. I've been doing this for 2-3 years. It's like, yeah, but that's going to catch up with you sometime.
Yeah. And the same with sleep as well. I've been saying recently about sleep being one of the most important things. And it's probably the most important thing along with blood glucose management to make sure you're setting yourself up right for health. And that if people are saying, I'm good at 5 hours sleep, yeah, come back to me in 10 years time with that.
Yeah.
Sure,
that's been a big one. I mean, and I thank you for that, because it's only really through the podcast, and we did that thing of sleep and through the functional medicine stuff, I looked more into it and suddenly looked and going, this is huge, and started asking patients more about their sleep patterns. It's rife. I don't think there's many people who can honestly say, you know, I sleep well. I've looked at all the research. I've looked at other podcasts on sleep. It's rife, and the sleep isn't actually the problem. It's just a reflection of stress and how it messes up, you know, cortisol, melatonin, and that as we've spoken of. It's not just well, as long as I take a sleeping tablet, I get enough hours sleep. It's like there's some significant lifestyle issues and stress and how we cope with stress, and the long term effects of that are huge.
Yeah, and like people take a sleeping tablet and they think they're getting sleep, but they're getting 8 hours unconscious.
Yeah, yeah.
The body is that actually going through all the detoxification side of things and like cellular regeneration and actually helping you with hormonal balance and all this sort of stuff? Not really, because it's still
No,
that stressful state which is stopping that. It just means that you're unconscious.
no. And it seems in the business world, they say that element is very much that it's that go 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 mentality. You can create an extra few hours by, you know, going to sleep later. You know, it's almost the productive hour is kind of 12 to 2 at night, and it's like that's your second win. You've now just stoked up your cortisols. Yeah, you're not going to go back to sleep, but
Yeah, you look at the actual physiology of like, why is that your
it's
second win?
crazy.
You just blunted your melatonin and increased your cortisol.
Yeah, and the scary thing is the consequence of that is not imminent. So that's why people, you know, they get away with it rather than that they're doing okay with it. You know, I'm okay to survive on. You know, I've had a patient who's like, I can survive on. I'm okay on 4 hours sleep. So I get one of the biggest traditional methods of torture was sleep deprivation. You know, you, you lose the plot if you don't sleep. But if you're doing it a little and often all the way through, it's just like a toxin. It's a slow poison. It's something's going to go bang down the line.
And I think it depends on what metrics you actually look at as doing okay. So I'm someone that tracks a lot of things, especially as I said, I got the Aura Ring, I got my Apple Watch. I can track heart rate variability. I can track my resting heart rate. I can track my body temperature. I can track my respiratory rate. I can track all these different things, my quality of sleep, what deep sleep and everything. I can track them to actually see that some days when I feel good, like feel okay, but my readings are off, like it just means I need to ease up a little bit to keep feeling good. It's
Yeah.
not say, oh, I feel good, so I'm just going to smash like a 10-mile run.
So do you use that information that like down the line you feel all right for the day, but the indicators are saying, listen, I'm heading towards fatigue here, so I'm still going to exercise or I'm still going to do this, but this isn't the day to push it. Or I've done that. My markers are looking, or my indicators are looking good. I feel good, so I'm up I'm scheduled to do for you a run or a heavy workout or something, and you can go for it.
I use the information for that, and also if I've got a scheduled session and maybe I don't feel as good, but all the readings are on point, I'll go for that run. But I think, in all honesty, like where I was in the past, that I would have pushed through even no matter what the reading said, which is a bad thing to do.
Yeah,
It's like
that's the point, is it? You've got the readings, you still got to either listen to them, taking them on board.
You got to have the accountability to do that, and I find that like that is what's needed, the accountability to use it. Like it's only good having it if you're going to utilize it. And like now I use it and listen to it.
Do you encourage clients to use the technology if they don't have it, to get it, or a lot of people have Apple Watches but don't use it?
If they've got the technology, I encourage people to use it to see what their output is like. Like not necessarily to say you've put those calories out, or you've done those calories, you need to eat those calories. Like there's going to be differentiation depending on what you're doing. But if we've got the technology there, you've got the Apple Watch. I think Fitbits do it as well. This is an Aura Ring. Is like there's the Whoop Band as well. A Whoop Band is it goes right around your wrist, but that's a subscription service. So it's like £25 or something a month, or £20 a month. But eventually that becomes more expensive than £300 up front. So it's like if you've not got the money to go up front, you can get this technology very low price just to see where you're at. And then you get much more of a marker of what is actually happening. And then also, which has helped with a couple of clients, is that when they're struggling to not drink alcohol, they can see, because this will give a readiness score or a recovery score, and obviously your heart rate variability as well. You can see you might be in the green. You suddenly have that 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and you have them a little bit later, as we know how much alcohol impacts sleep. Bam, straight into red. And like we can actually see what this is doing. So it gives such a good feedback, especially with people that are very statistically driven. They're very numerical, that they want to see in black and white what things are happening, because we can be very headstrong. Like we know, we've both had patients that are very headstrong. Like we'll just go through and do it no matter what. But if you're actually seeing like the recovery drop, you're seeing your heart rate variability drop, you see that you've had a bad night's sleep, we can link it to this stuff. And even like the wrong food, like we had a reaction, so like our readiness is lower. It takes a lot of the guesswork out for not that much of the cost.
Yeah, I can see that, and also like in our practice we use the scanner, and so it's the patients love it. It's nice and visual. It gives feedback, but it also doesn't measure a symptom or doesn't measure pain. It measures it's an indicator how you function, and that's what I like what you're describing, because a lot of people will just be really more focused on this is how I feel. I feel okay. Like the sleep, I can survive. I can get through the day. But the stats and the information, it's a bit like someone saying, "Hey, I feel fine," and you take the blood pressure and say, "Listen, but your blood pressure is through the roof." Yeah, well, I feel okay. You don't. It's not how you feel; it's how you function. So they're looking at when you start shifting and assessing and looking at from the functionality side. Some people can they can carry a little bit more weight, but functionally they can be a lot healthier than the person is killing themselves, not eating the right nutrition, is in an ideal weight band, but actually is sitting waiting for diabetes or heart disease or something, because they're screwing their body up.
I done for my female health reboot. I done the blood sugar talk on Monday, and it was just saying that why do we see people that aren't overweight having diabetes? Because the amount of stress they're having. But also, like, there's this big thing about obesity at the moment, and how people are really overweight people getting ill because their immune function is low. But what about the people that are underweight? What about the people like myself when I was competing in bodybuilding, really overtraining? Or even then going into 2015 when I was doing the weight training and the endurance work without having that rest. Like, not what I would tell clients to do. And obviously I follow my own advice now, but I had to learn from those lessons. Like, we see obese is unhealthy, but there's also extremely underweight, we know is very unhealthy. Then we said like the extreme overtraining as well.
Yeah, the obese, I mean, the thing with obesity comes the general thing for the lifestyle elements associated with obesity. But there's some people who carry more weight, but their lifestyle and nutrition is good, and all their functional health markers are ideal. So for them just to look at weight or the BMI, which is a rubbish indicator of health, but the BMI, they say, right, now I've got to cut back calories, starve this, or overtrain to get into that BMI or the my height weight category. They become unhealthy. But we know that for a vast majority of obesity cases, the lifestyle is a big factor. So there's always that focus from a functional perspective on what's the lifestyle rather than just what it says on the scales. It's a poor indicator. You take a classic bodybuilder, can be carrying a huge amount of lean muscle mass and therefore carrying a lot more body weight. And then if they're short, they're going to suddenly have a really high BMI. Or you got the other element of someone who's really tall but is carrying a lot of weight. So the BMI or those indicators were all just set up for the insurance industries to cross section and reduce risk factors of policies. Mm-hmm. But the technology is now bringing the functionality of saying, listen, it's not just about what your blood pressure and what your weight is. Let's measure all these other indicators. And I think the interesting thing will come out post-COVID with this is that Is the general society going to suddenly stop and go, you know what? What COVID has taught us is those people with underlying health issues are vulnerable. They're the ones who couldn't cope with that. There's some genetic variation. So there's some people who perceive that they didn't have any issues, but they may also have been some who didn't have any issues diagnosed. So they weren't aware that they had underlying heart disease or were pre-diabetic or so. But in a general sense, apart from the age factor, I wonder whether down the line we're going to get a sense that some people say, you know what, this is now woke me up. I'm pre-diabetic. I need to sort this out, or I'm doing it because those are the people who are already inflamed. They're already the ones who are preset, or the immune system's already struggling.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting dynamic, and I think technology will help us because we can then start and going forwards for me, I want to bring some of that into assessing patients when we do more the functional health stuff because it gives indicators where people can say, I feel fine. Say, great, but this is what our assessment suggests. So do we want to improve these indicators?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we should definitely do some do a podcast on technology and how we can use it to our benefits. I definitely think we should do that. So
well, and that's changing so quickly. I
yeah.
mean, I see that you got the Aura Ring. I mean, at one stage, I don't know if you had to pre-order that for some time, but at one stage you couldn't get them. They were just.
Well, I was going to get one like a couple of years ago, but there was a 6-week waiting list. I don't want to wait 6 weeks, so I waited 2 years.
Yeah, I think at one stage there were about a 6 to 8 month wait list. I remember speaking to someone.
Definitely. So I grabbed one. Like it was a Christmas present. Like I paid some towards it, but part of it was a Christmas present. So it was good to have that. But I tried the whip band beforehand. I just didn't like, because I wear my watch this side, I had the band this side. So I took these off, which I'm used to wearing, which are quite loose.
Yeah.
So the band was quite tight, and I just didn't like having two things that were quite tight. So I think it sounds like the readings were pretty similar, and I think the accuracy is pretty similar. So it's like, what do you prefer, having a ring or having the band? So yeah, we're gonna have to wrap it up there.
Yeah, I was just looking at, as always, unplugged means we don't know where we're going, but it always brings up some interesting things. So on behalf of both Ollie and I, thank you for your guys' time, and obviously we'll be putting things out and recording and going out also on our official podcasts, Podbeam, etc. So until next time, it's good night or goodbye, and thank you for your time from me, and we look forward to catching up next time.
Take care, guys.